So something just clicked I've been thinking about for a while. I have a story. This is definitely story time. And I'm mind blown right now at this realization of my personal experience about ready to share with you. So I've been married twice, and both marriages were very similar because I wasn't learning the lessons. So the energy recycled back in my second marriage of being in a relationship of just being like emotionally disregarded, and a lot of trauma in the home around money, financial stability, not feeling safe in the home. So both marriages were very similar. Two totally different men, but very similar energetically, and how they impacted me negatively energetically because I wasn't learning the lesson. The energy just kept recycling, because when we are in a space where we're supposed to be learning something, that lesson will continue to recycle until we click and make the changes both in behavior and in our thought process, so that it unconditions our mind and we shift away from that lesson into a higher vibration. So that's where I was in the process of. But here's the thing. So my first marriage had a lot of verbal abuse, a lot of trauma and stress, of also around money, because there was always issues with money, because he just never was happy no matter how much money we had. And it was actually money, which is the root chakra, that pretty much ended our marriage. But not because we didn't have it, but because the more he got, the more mean he became, and the less tolerant I became of his behaviors, and him calling me stupid or telling me to shut up and all these ridiculous comments. And he'd say it right in front of my boys. Like, it was bad. So when I got out of that relationship, when I got out of that marriage, I didn't learn from that. I was still in that really strong energy. I don't need to ask anybody for help. I can do it on my own. I'm going to raise my kids by myself. I wasn't learning. So that experience recycled back into my second marriage, where again, there were financial issues, but this time it was the other way, where there wasn't any money, which again is the root chakra. So with the root chakra trauma that I was experiencing, with just not feeling safe in the home and having to watch my back and keep my eyes on a swivel to, protect my boys and prevent them from hearing and experiencing what I was experiencing, trying to just maintain maintain normalcy for them in the home, I was allowing that trauma to come to me to avoid it from hitting them. But here's what happened. In the second marriage, I sustained a serious hip injury in the right hip, which the right side's the masculine side. So whenever you have an injury that manifests, or illness that manifests from the impact of a male energy, most likely that illness or physical trauma will be on the right side of the body. So I had this hip injury, which the hip resonates with the root and sacral chakra, which is where there's personal power, feeling solid in your identity and your identity of choices, as well as like feeling stable in the home, being balanced in money, balanced financially, balanced in relationships that come to you. And in both my marriages, all of that was totally out of balance. So the injury in my right hip 100% resonated with both my previous marriage and my current marriage. So in my current marriage, I learned my lesson, and it clicked because I was in the process. It was around 2013 that I started to tap into the medical medium side of my skill set, and I was assessing and reevaluating my life all the way back to my first marriage, which was back in 1999. So I was reevaluating myself and walking through the process, and I started to realize that I was literally reliving the same exact experiences, just in a different person, in a different time in my life, because I was missing the lesson, and I made that connection. So in my second marriage, when I got a divorce, I made sure that I stood up in my power. I made sure that I had balance in my finances and my power, and I made sure I was balanced in my relationship with myself, not necessarily my relationship with him, but I rebuilt my relationship with me, and I rebuilt my finances through me by setting up my own business and starting this process of just growth and evolving and vibing in a higher vibration, which brought in the friends that I have now that are my friends for life. But in that process, with healing that hip injury, here's the trick. This is what blows my mind. In the process of my second marriage, when I got that hip injury, I decided to take on the triathlon sport. Even though I was not allowed to run and I was told I would never run again, I decided to take on the sport of triathlon because I used swimming and bike riding as a way to rehab and fix my hip and build back the strength so I could get back to running. This blows my mind every time I think about it. So I started taking on swimming and cycling. And 6 months after my running injury that was supposed to take running out of my life completely, it made me stronger because I was learning both physically about my body and emotionally about my body and energetically about my body. So I was able to heal in all three of those areas and return back to not only running, but I completed a triathlon. Now, my first triathlon that I finished was the Lake Placid Ironman, which to me felt like I resolved my issues. I was healed. Like, I finished the process. I finished the lesson. So when I crossed that finish line at the Ironman Lake Placid, it was above and beyond more than just finishing the race and being done with the training. I was in a new space of myself. I was in my personal power. I re-identified myself not only as a runner, but an Ironman triathlete. And I knew I had finished that lesson. That lesson would no longer come back to me. The very first Ironman Lake Placid was July of 1999, which is the same exact day and year that I married my first husband. Was also the exact same day and year of the very first Ironman triathlon that I did in Lake Placid. That sit deep.